Hey, I'm Randy, and you're watching The Cheap Audio Man. Here at The Cheap Audio Man, we talk about high-value hi-fi home theater and headphone equipment. And today, guess what? Audiophiles are still full of crap. Yes, they are. Audiophiles are full of crap was a video I did 1 year ago to the day. And it's become my most popular video. I don't know why, it didn't take that long to make, and it was just me complaining about things. We'll see if anybody watches this one, because I had zero expectations with the first video. I just wanted to talk about some things that bothered me about the kind of accepted truths when it comes to being an audiophile. Well, there's more to talk about. My intention is to offend no one, but to inspire critical thinking instead of just parroting things that you've read or that you've heard over and over again like a mindless automaton. Experience things for yourself and then come up with your own conclusions. When someone disagrees with me, oftentimes I get this in the comments. I've been an audiophile for 50 years. ... What does that mean? You've been an audiophile for 50 years. Was there an apprenticeship program? Did you actually do audiophile work for 50 years? Is it meaningless? Probably. People use the statement, I've been an audiophile for X number of years, to completely dismiss somebody else, whether it's me or somebody else in the comments about having a different opinion than they have. Well, of course, that they are correct since they've been an audiophile for 30 years. There's no way somebody that has listened to hundreds of products in a year and a half could possibly have more experience than they have because they've been an audiophile for 50 years or 30 years. How do you even become an audiophile? Is there anyone that's been an audiophile for 2 years? 3 years? At what point do you start to look down upon other people? Which decade is it? If you know, put it down in the comments because it's got to be over 10 years. I've never had anybody say I've been an audiophile for 10 years and blah, blah, blah. Usually it's 20, 30, really 30 or 40 or 50. You get those audiophiles with 50 years, boy, they know everything. I had a professor in college who had been there for 50 years, and guess what? He was horrible. So just because you've done something for a long time doesn't automatically make you an expert at it. Not to mention, if you've had similar equipment for a long time, you're probably less apt to know more about more equipment. Not to mention, if you've been an audiophile for 50 years, you probably haven't heard anything that's affordable or anything that's new. So, being an audiophile for 50 years is probably a handicap in your ability to actually know anything new about this hobby. Or let's just say anything about this hobby. See how many people's heads I can get to spin off today. So in my comments, if you lead with I've been an audiophile for X number of years just to dismiss everybody, you're being pretty stupid. And grossly overstating the value of your experience. My music, this one, definitely this one, and there's no way this one right here is an audiophile record, is an audiophile recording. No way Metallica is an audiophile band. There's just no way that I could be listening to that music and have any idea about how a piece of equipment actually performs. Isn't audiophile music. What is audiophile music? Is it a genre? Is it simply classical? Actually, I had someone get in the comments say it's not classical, it's orchestral. I'm going to stick with classical. Is it classical? Is it jazz? Is it experimental music? What is audiophile? Is it compressed? Is it not compressed? Does it wear a hat? Is it a cat? Maybe it's fat. What is audiophile music? The audiophile label is a misnomer. By default, it's purely subjective. It's not even like being a professional athlete. If you're a professional athlete, if you get paid to be an athlete, you're a professional athlete. You may not be in the NFL, but you're still a professional athlete. Guess who's a professional audiophile? Me, and I don't even want to be one. But I get paid to listen to things and then talk about what it is. I enjoy music a lot. I love listening to it. I love listening to the equipment. So guess what? Guess who's a professional audiophile? Me. Guess who's not a professional audiophile? Probably many of you watching this. I'm not saying that I'm better than you. I'm just saying the absurdity of the audiophile moniker. Doesn't matter. The absurdity of assigning an audiophile label to music is dumb. Because, is there a committee that meets? Or is it just groupthink? Oh, it's not jazz, not classical. I bet there's jazz and classical recordings that are horrible. Are those recordings not audiophile? Which ones are? And who's making the decision? Every piece of recorded music in history, if it was a mono bootleg from the 80s, why not? That can be audiophile. If you enjoy it, if you like it, if you're listening to it for pleasure, it's an audiophile recording. If it's compressed and you listen to it and you enjoy it, it's an audiophile recording. You are an audiophile, regardless of what you're listening to. So I get a big kick when people tell me that my music isn't audiophile. There's a lot of great artists out there that are recording fantastic music, complex music that I don't think is all that compressed. But even compressed music is audiophile music. Any music is. And if you say it's not, well, then you're an idiot. You should never have tone controls or EQ in your system. It messes everything up. It's horrible. No tone controls. At what point did manufacturers take out tone controls because they were so evil and horrible? Could it be that it was because they wanted to save money instead of actually giving you the purity of the music? Now, granted, since I'm a professional audiophile and I do this for a living, there have been few pieces of equipment, amps, integrated amps, things like that, that I have felt no need to use tone controls. However, that's subjective on my part. That's what I like to hear. I have never said my opinion trumps your opinion. You should like what you like. You should like what speakers you like. Because this is about you and your enjoyment. When an amp or an integrated amp resonates with us, or a source resonates with us, and we don't feel the need to use tone controls, or we don't feel like there's anything missing, then that's great. But since sources all sound different, that means in order for you to have an amp that you like the sound of, you have to get lucky enough for the designer and you to have the same taste. Because if you don't, then you're going to feel like there's something missing. So not only do different components sound different, but different people have different proclivities, different likes. So you're going to have to get really, really lucky to get something that is perfect for you. Because I've heard a lot of amps since I'm a professional audiophile. I've heard a lot of amps, and most of them sound completely different, or at least have subtle differences. And why did EQs go out of fashion? They're cool. They're cool to look at. A lot of them have lights, or used to at least, and bouncy meters. Somebody needs to bring those back. Schkit makes no apologies about EQ. And I love that. Most people don't have the time or the money to go audition dozens of pieces of electronics until they get one that sounds just perfect for them. You can buy a $300 EQ from Schkit, put it in your system, and that thing will cover a lot of sins. And you can fiddle with it. And different music may need different EQs for your preference. So we shouldn't have to be locked in to a specific sound because some company wants to save some money by not putting tone controls in there and then hide behind it's music in its purest form. Even though that was never done for decades. Decades! But now we do it because it's pure. It's audiophile. Why? Because some dude that's been an audiophile for 30 years said it is. Tone controls, EQ, embrace them. They're there for your enjoyment. Not having tone controls or an EQ is basically like saying, and this came from a patron last night, don't change the volume. You don't get to listen to anything at a different volume because some equipment really shines at a specific volume. We all get to change the volume. Why shouldn't we get to change the tone controls? And things sound different at different levels because of our hearing. The loudness button, tone controls, EQ. Suddenly they're bad. Ironically, people get to save money by saying that they're bad. So if you think EQs and tone controls are terrible, you're probably dumb. Chinese products are garbage. Are they? Well, some are. Some US products are garbage. Painting with such huge, broad strokes is good for no one because a lot of the affordable equipment that I've listened to is either manufactured in China or designed and manufactured in China. Most of the legacy brands make products in China. There are brands out there that people think did actual design work and they did not. They ordered a minimum amount of product and then they paid for it and then they got shipped to them. And then it was their product. Suddenly they're a hi-fi manufacturer. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, Because if you can do that and you accept lower margins, then great. It's great for the industry because those are proven designs that do work. And Chinese companies use US and European parts. Almost all the Class D amplifiers that I have in here use Infineon amp chips or Texas Instruments amp chips. Most of the internal components are US or European made. They're assembled in China, but if they're legit chips, if they're legit parts, that's really more US made than people probably think. And some of it is really good. The Topping LA90 is one of the best amplifiers I've ever heard, if not the best amplifiers I've heard. Now, granted, it's not the best amplifier I've had because there's some wonky decisions made with inputs and things like that. But that thing sounds incredible. So just because something's made in China, there's a whole bunch of people that make stuff in China that are based somewhere else, but they're still making stuff in China. I'm not going to go through the whole list of names, but chances are something in your living room probably was made in China. Not to mention cell phones, everything else, monitors. Why do we get all wrapped up about hi-fi gear that's made there? We have no problem driving vehicles that have Chinese content in them. So if you think everything made in China is garbage, well, then you're an idiot. Oh, that's another one. All DACs sound the same. Do they? No, they don't. Go buy an iFi Zen version 2 DAC, and then go buy a Topping E30 Mark II DAC, and then listen to them yourself. You'll be out about $300. You can return them both. But go buy those 2 DACs, use the same computer source, whatever it is, put it through the same speakers, the same amplifier, and tell me that those DACs don't sound different. I hope you enjoyed that. Listen, I know that's going to make some people mad, but I am just trying to get as many people into this hobby as I possibly can. And by calling out some idiotic ways of thinking, it's a good way to stop the gatekeeping, because this is what it's all about. Audiophiles want to gatekeep, whether it's by pricing people out of the game or by imposing their will and their thought process on other people. The bottom line is, if you like the music, if it sounds good to you on whatever equipment you're listening to, then you're an audiophile. And don't be an audiophile that dismisses other people. Welcome people into the hobby. Talk about different music. Talk about your journey, because you've been an audiophile for 30 or 40 or 50 years and you know everything. Just kidding. Be nice to people. Share things with people. Don't crap on people because they can't afford a $5,000 DAC. Anyway, I want to spur thinking about this. Not contempt prior to investigation. Not gatekeeping. We all have the right to enjoy music. And we all have the right to call ourselves whatever we want. And if we want to identify as audiophiles, then you're an audiophile. Unfortunately, many people that identify as audiophiles are jerks. And ignorant ones at that. So, if you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon, patreon.com/cheapaudioman. Sunday night, we have Zooms, Patreon-only Discord, Patreon-only Facebook, Patreon-only... No, that's about it. You can use the links in the description. Those are affiliate links, which means if you click and you buy, I do get a commission. But it doesn't cost you any more. So it's a great way to support the channel. You can also just click through and buy whatever you want to. A tent, a knife, a dog kennel. Also sign up for Amazon Music or Tidal Music, real true audiophile lossless music. You also use the thanks button down below next to the share button. You can give me a couple of bucks, buy me a cup of coffee, but don't feel compelled to give me anything at all. So don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Binge listen to whatever you want, through whatever you want. Call yourself an audiophile, call yourself a hi-fi enthusiast, and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.